We are going to have a few more folks wandering in over the next couple of minutes, including our third performer. But welcome. I want to thank you all so much for coming out or sticking around after the service for this recital. My name is David Brown. I'm the music director here at Mainline Unitarian Church. I am joined by my dear friend, Greg Fiorentino, who, if you heard this morning, has been a collaborator and friend of mine for almost 20 years, which is really hard to believe at this point. We were college roommates. We met actually at a high school PMEA choir festival in 2007, and we have been making music together on and off ever since. This is the first concert of the 2025, we're not in 2025 anymore, 26-27 Illumine concert series. And Illumine is the MLUC concert series that encompasses just about every musical genre you can imagine. We have barn dances and classical recitals and holiday events and swing and jazz, singer-songwriters, all kinds of stuff. So I encourage you, if you're not already plugged into following what we do, either receiving our newsletter or routinely checking the website, we do a lot of interesting things around here. Next month alone, we're going to have our recurring Jazz Sanctuary performance, Jazz and Joe in the McGinnis Room. I think it's the fourth Wednesday of every month. We have a Ukrainian composer, pianist coming to perform his own live score to a famous Ukrainian silent film. We're doing a lot of really neat things this year. But I'm really delighted, welcome Kaitlyn. I'm really delighted to begin our 26-27 series the same way we began last year's. Just the two of us, playing a no-frills recital program. But when I say this, I want to encourage all of you to be curious, ask questions, tell us how you feel about stuff. Think about this recital as more of a conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about each piece. It's a very unusual program. Greg proposed it to me a couple months ago, and 2 of the 5 pieces I'd never even heard before. There will be some familiar composers, some utterly unfamiliar composers. To some of you, nothing will be familiar, and that's wonderful. We want it to make sense to you. I think what I love so much about this program is that every piece is unique and memorable. This is the kind of music you could walk out of the room still singing. And I think some of the music is transformative. I think some of the music you will want to keep listening to because you felt like you were changed this afternoon. And that's how I've been. I would say that one of the pieces on this program, and we'll get there, is easily the most meaningful piece of music I've learned in the past year or so. So we begin our program today with a set of pieces by Antonín Dvořák. And Dvořák was a Czech composer. He's kind of considered the one of the leaders of the movement in Europe to integrate the national music or folk music into classical forms in the mid-19th century. And this set of pieces, it's actually 4 romantic pieces. Greg and I made the executive decision to cut it down to 3 because neither of us liked the 4th. I mean, it's nice, but it doesn't say as much as the others do. But it's a set of 4 pieces, short pieces, melodic pieces. Greg, do you want to share anything about it? I know you have.
Well, so Dvořák, very well known for a couple things, applying sort of American kind of folk and African-American folk themes and motives to large-scale orchestral works. These pieces are much smaller in scale, and what I learned in reading about this was that he was at a point in his career where he had written many large-scale works, and his family had a violinist staying with them, and they just wanted something little to play. And I think he conceived of these first as a trio, and then rewrote them for piano and violin. And he had commented to his publisher that he was having as much fun writing these miniature pieces as he would be writing a large-scale symphony, and noted that he thought the project seemed very simple at first, but then acknowledged that even the great masters that he looked up to, Beethoven, Schubert, were able to express their musical ideas simply at times as well, and some of their most profound works had that characteristic to them. So I imagine that they would have played this on a Sunday afternoon just in a salon or someone's house for the purpose of making nice music.
Thanks so much, everyone. The next piece is by a composer named Lily Boulanger. And sadly, the sisters Lily and Nadia Boulanger are generally regarded as the great teachers of other male composers during the 20th century, if anyone has heard their names at all. And this set of two pieces by Lily is one of the most delightful recital pieces I've ever found, because it's in two parts, a short, beautiful nocturne, followed by a fast, exciting, light, very French second movement. And I think her idiom is so, her compositional idiom is so unique because she takes what, at least in my opinion, what we kind of understand to be French music around the early 20th century, and digs a little bit deeper than composers like Debussy, for example, into more interesting harmonic. I think she blends the harmony of impressionist composers like Debussy with the Romantics, who understood harmonic progressions that were even more relatable, I think, to an audience. Greg, what would you say about this music?
Actually, interestingly, I found that these two pieces were written about 3 years apart, but I do think they pair so nicely together, and that's why they kind of came together as a set. And yeah, I agree in terms of the character of the pieces. They were written in 1911 and 1914, and they certainly have that impressionist kind of mood, but also a very recognizable progression, and particularly the second piece, which is light, like you said. It has a very singable tune to it, which you don't always find in that kind of music or music from that period. And Lily Boulanger, I think, passed away soon after, or within a couple years of when the second piece was written. Her sister Nadia lived much longer, but she left an impressive body of work. I think she was only 24 when she died, but she left an impressive body of work for that short life.
Dramatic contrast, right? What do you think so far? Interesting music, right? Yes. Yeah, it is. So two things. She mentioned World War I as maybe a potential storyline, and I think there was an exercise my violin professor in college that used to have us all do, which was to come back to our lesson with a story that corresponded to the totally abstract piece of music we were learning. Walk us through what's happening. And so, yes, I suspect that this music is extremely evocative of a storyline, not to mention the fact that she was active around the time of World War. This actually was probably composed around 1914. Yeah, so you even got the time period. The next piece of music we're going to play is one of the two that I didn't know at all. Greg sent me a text, we should play the Samuel Coleridge Taylor Ballade. And I was very embarrassed to admit to Greg at our first rehearsal that I had downloaded the wrong Coleridge Taylor Ballade only a week prior to our first rehearsal. And Samuel Coleridge Taylor, not to be confused with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the author of The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, his father was from Sierra Leone, and he was a British composer who wrote, again, it was a very progressive idiom. A lot of these composers who aren't part of the mainstream canon were doing such interesting things. It's a shame that they're not household names. I have been coming to feel this way about Coleridge Taylor's work, because this ballade, which is a larger single movement work, is quite a story. And I mean that in an abstract sense. I don't have a story necessarily that I have assigned to this piece, but it's a real adventure. It begins very, very dark and kind of crawls up from the ground and then develops in what I think was almost a composer's premonition to the music that composers like Boulanger would be writing decades later. Coleridge Taylor lived during the 19th century, into the 20th century we discussed. But he was still a romantic period composer, and I think that his style, that his sense of harmony and development is very evocative of the later Impressionist composers. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I forget the exact year of this piece off the top of my head, but it was maybe 20 or 30 years before what we just played. This is a longer work. It has more time to sort of develop the musical ideas in it. But similarly, I read that Samuel Coleridge, who was actually named, his father's surname was Taylor, so his mother named him Samuel Coleridge Taylor in homage to Samuel Taylor Coleridge. So trying to get that right is always a challenge. But he was received, I think around the time, or maybe a little after this piece was written, received at the White House by Teddy Roosevelt, which would have been very unusual at that time for even a British man of African descent, which he was. He was, I think, critically well regarded in the United States when his work was played in New York and other places on the East Coast. This ballade, I think, is a good example of the kind of compositional work that he would have done, bringing different forms together and having that come together in a story. I don't have a story either for this one, but it does lend itself to that, certainly.
One other funny story. I am in the process of producing an opera I wrote about 10 years ago, based on the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. So over the past month now, I have been really struggling to keep track of Coleridge Taylor or Taylor Coleridge. But I think after this experience, I got it. Okay, I'm gonna catch my breath for a moment. But you see what I mean? It's exquisite, and it's very much a story. And when we were putting this program together, it was a little difficult to figure out how we were going to order the program to create a larger story, a larger arc. And I was so biased and also compelled by the next piece we're going to play as being the sort of linchpin of the whole program, the piece that I believed, and I am willing to give all this preamble on the bet that you're all going to agree with me, that this piece will change you. This is a piece by Rebecca Clark. How many of you have heard of this composer before? Other than Barbara. So I had heard of Rebecca Clark. I'd heard some of her music before. She's her music's commonly performed by viola players because she was a violist. And we violinists are contractually obligated to make fun of violists. So I kept my distance. And it's a damn shame because Greg proposed this piece, which I think you found on like maybe a YouTube rabbit hole or something?
I was just listening to things and I liked them.
Yeah. And I'd never heard anything like it before. This piece is called Morpheus. And at first I was not exactly sure whether this was a reference to a sleep deity or antiquity or what. But I got a very interesting email just a couple days ago directed to the MLUC music director. Hey, I heard that you're going to be performing a piece by Rebecca Clark. I'm her great-grandnephew, her great-nephew, and the owner of her estate and the musicologist who has been actively documenting her work. And I was super intrigued. He offered to provide any additional information, resources, etc. So he left his number. I gave him a call. I didn't really have the time, but he spoke for about 45 minutes. And I was riveted. I mean, so he's a musicologist by training, so he knows what he's doing, and he is probably the leading expert on Rebecca Clark's music. And so I was deeply compelled by his description of her work. I'll let you talk about the piece, but there was something that I wanted to mention that really resonated with me. She never wrote large forms, symphonies, operas. She wrote these smaller pieces. Some of you who know my musical tastes well know that I love composers who say a lot in just a little bit of time. This piece, at only about 6.5 minutes, is one of her longer pieces. And oh my God, it is just mind-blowing the way that well, I'm not going to say too much, I'm going to let you listen to it, but every note matters. That's what he imparted to me. That in Rebecca Clark's compositional idiom, not a single note was superfluous. When you listen to, I'm going to use a low-hanging fruit example, but like a Haydn symphony, for example. Wildly prolific composer from the classical period, wrote 104, maybe 108 symphonies. The guy was reusing material. The guy was adding repeat brackets left and right. His string quartets, the same thing. Masterpieces, but there were some notes that he was writing because he was gainfully employed to do so. Rebecca Clark made no such compositional decisions. Every single note mattered, and I think you'll understand why. Greg, would you tell us a little bit about what you learned about this piece?
Well, so I have you to thank for this conversation and then the document that we received, which I'm not sure how canonical it is, but Morpheus in Greek mythology is the son of Somnus, who is the god of sleep, and in Ovid's Metamorphosis appears to Alcyone, who is a widow, and the story is of this sort of back and forth where she learns that her husband, the king, has died at sea, and in the end is transformed into a kingfisher, a beautiful bird, and that's where we get the word halcyon from, to mean sort of peaceful times. And I wouldn't go as far as to say that I see this piece as sort of a shot-for-shot interpretation of the original poem, but it certainly has elements to it that make a lot of sense. And I think this idea of a duality to the piece, that there are two themes and they relate back and forth to each other, and the way she sort of molds them and brings them together, I think is extremely evocative. And so I like having that story in my head as we go through the music.
So I will indeed be playing the viola, and I'll just mention that some of you who saw the premiere of my oratorio on Music Sunday a couple weeks ago would remember that Greg was the organist. Greg either joked or truly meant this when he said, I made him play the organ, now he's going to make me play the viola. I have a close friend who imparted to me the wisdom when you're playing a piece like this, heart on fire, mind on ice. And I had to recite those words to myself as we began playing because I immediately started to cry. And you understand why, right? There's so much there. We're going to perform one more piece today. Before we do, I want to give a big thanks to Sam Levine in the back, who has been live streaming this performance, and thanks to everyone who's been joining us online. Thank you all so much for giving your afternoon over to us. Also, on your way out, there is a basket if you didn't see it, and a QR code to make donations. This is our model for funding the Illumine concert series. 90% of what you donate goes to the guest artist, or in this case, to Greg. So show Greg your appreciation on your way out. And now. And 10% of the general operating budget of MLUC. So please, if you've not visited the basket or scanned the QR code, do so on your way out. The final piece was very exciting to me when Greg proposed it, because Manuel de Falla was my foray into Spanish music. And some of you around here know I am a Spanish music fanatic, probably most disproportionately infatuated with Spanish music for somebody who has zero Spanish language skills. But if I have an area of expertise within music, it's the Spanish composers, and all thanks to Manuel de Falla. This set of pieces that Greg proposed we played, his 7 popular Spanish folk songs, has been transcribed by violinists such as Paul Kochanski and Fritz Kreisler, which is how I first learned about them, but they were originally for the voice. And so when I first listened to this music, I was a little disappointed because the violin is kind of just playing the voice part verbatim. I mean, you know, sometimes with harmonic, sometimes up an octave, a little bit different here or there, but it's really not written for the violin. And so as my mother and my wife and I were forging a concert series years ago and trying to find repertoire for violin, voice, and piano, I had the slightly tasteless idea that we would perform Falla's 7 popular Spanish folk songs for voice and piano, but that I would compose an original violin part meant to sound like it was written by Manuel de Falla himself. And I did work very hard to write something tasteful enough, despite my tasteless project, that Falla might, were he to have heard the piece, recognize it in his own compositional style. And it is very much based on the music, his orchestration that I have known since I've been listening to the music of Manuel de Falla. I'm overjoyed that Kaitlyn Waterson, MLUC staff singer, and my brilliant wife will be joining us for this final piece. Welcome, Kaitlyn. And it also occurred to me that technically the last time the three of us performed together was, I think it's February 21st, or that weekend, 2007, which was indeed the PMEA Region Choir Festival, which was a high school affair, a choir of maybe 160 people, but just 2 accompanists who were selected in the entire greater Philadelphia area. Greg was one of them. I sang in the bass 2 section. It was easy to be a high achiever. As a boy with perfect pitch in high school, I could basically do whatever I wanted in a choral setting. They needed us. And Kaitlyn was in the alto section. What we realized in the photo that hangs in our bedroom, featuring technically all 3 of us, had Kaitlyn and I reached our arms out, we could have touched, but we wouldn't meet for another 3 years till we were all in college together. So this is the first time the 3 of us are performing as a trio. Manuel de Falla's 7 popular Spanish folk songs with my, I'll let you decide, tasteful or tasteless, violin part. Kaitlyn, would you be willing to, thank you, would you be willing to share just a little bit about what the text means?
They're all a little different. The first one is talking about this piece of cloth in the shop, but it has a stain on it, and so it's worth less. And it's thought to be allegorical for a young lady in the town whose reputation perhaps has been damaged. The second movement is very chatty. It's kind of patter song-ish. And it's talking about, like, you know, anybody who lives in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, and it sort of uses that sort of imagery to perhaps convey that the speaker is thinking about a lover who has wronged her, who's been false. The third movement is very slow. It kind of sounds like weeping. It's about a person who is walking in the woods and kind of feeling like the trees are weeping with her. She's been also wronged romantically. These are all based on different dances, if I'm not mistaken, right? So the fourth movement is very, very dance-like and very kind of cheeky, and this one has my favorite of David's additions to the folk songs. The fifth movement is a lullaby. Sixth movement is kind of a curious one because I think the music is much happier than the text conveys. The sixth one is deeply personal, and it's sort of hard to describe. It's very poetic, but it's talking about like never having been loved, and it's actually quite sad, but the music is not sad with it. And then the final movement is like kind of angry, fiery, a person who's once again been wronged romantically, and you can really hear that, unlike in movement 6 in the seventh movement.